असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय। ओम शांति शांति शांति। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। Respected Shamit Bakshi ji, my brother monks, Swami Lakshmidharananda and Swami Mahamedananda, my namaskars to all the members of Vivekananda Study Circle, the coordinators, and all other invitees here this evening. I am fortunate and happy to be invited to be part of the 20th inaugural lecture of Vivekananda Study Circle. In fact, from 1997 onwards, I was in Chennai, in T Nagar. Maybe once in 3 months or once in 4 months, whenever there was an opportunity, I used to come and spend some time interacting with the students during the formative periods of the study circle. And that is how Lakshmidharananda ji and Professor Rajgopal, then another professor is there in Coimbatore, Pramod Kumar, all were of the first batch of Vivekananda Study Circle. They were all students here. Later on, occasionally there were chances of meeting some students of that time whenever they are coming to different parts of our centers. So that is how the family of Vivekananda Study Circle has widened. Hundreds and hundreds have attended, participated, and maybe few are implementing those teachings in their daily life. So I appreciate the effort, appreciate the perseverance of Sai Teja, Chaitanya, Ashish and others who will keep up that lamp which has been lit 20 years ago, which will continue to the younger generation, to their juniors, as it has been coming down last thousands of years in our culture. So in this short time available, on a subject of great interest to me personally and to all of you, let us for a few moments go back to the Second World War. When the Nazis, under the leadership of Hitler, were killing the Jews through the gas chambers and other methods, one of the notorious concentration camps in Germany was the Auschwitz camp, which targeted or which had the maximum number of Jews being killed. And one of the ideology of Hitler was to eradicate the Jews from this planet Earth. Kill the old people, kill the youngsters, or the children, the women, but see that the seed of the future generation doesn't arise. It's a very tragic, very painful experience of that period. Then we find when the Germans invade Poland and then they catch all the young fellows from different backgrounds, they take them to Auschwitz, they work on their brain, they work on their thoughts, torture them, darken their mind process, give them very stale, hopeless food, strip them naked, don't allow them to talk with each other, no other communication. They have to walk barefoot kilometers together and dig the ice for the railway tracks to be put for the German army to move on. And they are sent into pigeonholes. They have to crawl inside to sleep in the night. No other communication, no reading, no other entertainment, nothing of that sort. One of the victims was a doctor, a psychiatrist by name Dr. Viktor Frankl. He is caught, just 24 years old boy. He is suffering, but he is somehow keeping his mind active. He is keeping the brain cells active. And he is searching for something to read, something to hold on, some thought. And accidentally or incidentally, he finds a piece of newspaper, just which has come in the wind. He hides it in his garment, just a towel around the waist, so that the soldiers will not see that he is reading something. And in the dim light of the night, when hardly one or two soldiers are there keeping watch, this Dr. Viktor Frankl starts reading that bit of newspaper and starts thinking, starts contemplating. And next day continues, third day continues, fourth day continues. And this continued till Russia defeats Germany, till the last day, nearly 4 years. Keeps his brain active. And when Russians come, release all the prisoners, there are rooms and godowns with food, with clothes, with fruit. So many things are there. But by that time, the mind of the young Jews is totally demolished. They become mad. They say, go and enjoy, go and eat. Take whatever clothes you want. What to enjoy? Their mind is not there to enjoy, to eat anything. They just go and destroy. They tear, they burn, they break. They become mad. Except a few people, out of thousands, maybe 10 or 15 survive the concentration camp assault. One of them is Dr. Viktor Frankl. Then he goes back to Vienna. He sees the hospital bombed, no address of the parents, his family, no banks, no water, no money. Somehow he scrambles some food on the roadside. He takes a broken table and a chair, sits on the footpath and starts therapy, counseling of the remaining Jews, remaining people in Vienna. Then, when people come and say, why should I live? Why should I exist? Now imagine, my dear young friends, we are in this sophisticated IIT Madras and in this beautiful auditorium with AC, with cozy, comfortable chairs and projections and all sorts of great things of technology. Imagine as you go to the hostel or back home, there's nothing. There's nothing for you. There are no friends, there's no family, there's no food. What will you do? Your very existence is at question. Why should you live? Why should you have all this drama? They also come across this question, all these people. Then when they say, I want to die, I want to commit suicide, he tries to console them and hold them back. They don't care. Before him itself, many kill themselves. So he says, I have to do a different strategy. Then he calls it logotherapy. He counterattacks. He says, when you start telling I will die, Dr. Viktor Frankl will tell them, go and die. Go and die. The moment he gives a shock, go and die, suddenly there is awareness, why should I die? Now the game starts. Yes, you should not die because of this. You have got the strength, you have got the potentiality, government will help us, Russia will help us, United States will help us, there will be something, we will take care of you, don't worry. Slowly, slowly, they are brought back to normal life. There is a meaning in their life. All this, I request all of you, if you have not come across this book, this is my most pet book, last 20 years I am reading. And every time I read, I get new questions, new answers, new things to my problems and also to the social problems of our country, of the world. The title of the book is amazing. It will help you. Man's Search for Meaning. The title itself is Man's Search for Meaning, Dr. Viktor Frankl. It's available in Amazon, it is available in Flipkart, it is available in a good bookshop. Please go and purchase the copy and read it 108 times. Because we do not know what will happen next. And this Viktor Frankl gives an experience. He is walking on a riverside. Suddenly he finds one young lady being washed off in the water or getting drowned. She is crying for help. She is crying for help. He saves her. He brings her to the shore. Other villagers come, they give her dress, they give her coffee, they give her something to be happy. After 15-20 minutes of getting comfort, this lady starts crying and crying and crying, hell out. Like a mad lady, she is crying. She says, "Madam, why are you crying? You are saved." And that lady says, "I want to die." Hey, you are asking, help me, help me. That lady beautifully says, "Who asked you to help me? Did I ask you to help me? I am crying, just help. Why did you help me?" And she is walking into the river again. What is the answer to that? She wants to die. But when she comes face to face with death, fear is there. She holds back and she says, "I want to survive." There's a conflict. There's a confusion. Everything is there, but nothing is there. So my dear young friends, that's how the subject matter opens. Somewhere down the line, if you young boys and girls, or anybody for that matter, doesn't come across this question, what next? Just imagine that situation when there's nothing in you. What IIT buildings, what nothing. It's barren ground, it's a desert, you are put into a Pacific island. The question comes, what next? What is this truth? What is this real? What am I doing all this for? That is how the inquiry started. Inquiry started in many ways. To make it simple, because it's just inaugural talk and you'll have more sessions at the personal level to discuss with the mentor. For example, what makes a man do a crime? Today that we see the crimes, that we see the assault, we see the murders, we see the negative things happening, right, left, center, all over the country, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Gujarat to Northeast, or in different parts of the world. A question was asked, an inquiry was made in the Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter by the great warrior called Arjuna, where he is asking Sri Krishna, the Gita-acharya, "Ata kena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha." What is it that makes a man do a papam, a crime? The inquiry starts. Behavioral psychology starts there. Anichannapi. He may not desire to do it, but there is something which is propelling him to do the crime. He forges a check. He cuts somebody's throat. He loots the nation. What is it that makes a man do? Anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. What is that power? That is very interesting. And that is where a spiritual inquiry comes. Krishna solves the problem. Today that we are seeing, the situation is not a law and order problem. It's a moral problem. It's a moral problem. Any number of CC cameras, any number of police, any number of laws in the parliament cannot make a nation good or bad unless I find answer within my subconscious mind which says kama yesha, krodha yesha, rajo guna samudbhavaha, the kama, the lust, which is the greatest enemy of man, and the krodha, the vengeance, the anger. These are the two enemies born of a deep nature within you and me called the rajoguna. You're IIT students, technology students, but have a little bit of psychology also. That would solve 99% problems. Personal, social, national, cultural. No confusion. Very clear it is. Because you have to deal with people. Not just machines. Machines switch on and switch off. That will stop. But what is the mind of the man in front of you, along with you, your colleagues, as you go to higher altitudes of your contribution to the nation. Kamayesha, Krodhayesha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidyena, Mihavairinam. These two enemies push a man to do a crime. Then what is the solution? Should I go on crying? Should I suffer? Should I be a victim? Should I encourage all this? No. The solution comes in the last sloka of the 3rd chapter, where Krishna says, take the axe of knowledge. Take the axe of knowledge and cut the very root of lust and greed. Don't just trim the outside trees. Don't just spray water from outside. Go to the very root of the problem. In your mind, in the base of your consciousness, there is that virus. Delete it. Don't even keep it in the recycle bin. It should be eradicated. Otherwise, that troubles will come again and again and disturb you. That was the call of the ancient masters. When you speak about scientific thinking or a scientific mind, all of you have come a long way in your life from LKG till this career, whether you are in the first year, whether in the final year, whether you are in second year, whether you are in PhD students, whether you are a professor. Why are you coming all this way? You are searching for truth, am I right? Searching for truth to mechanics, searching for truth through civil or electronics or IT, whatever career you have taken, whatever option you have got. But that is again at the external level. You may improve the mechanics, you may improve the facilities, you may give the infrastructure, but will you solve the moral problem of the person inside? Can science give you sleep? That is why one study was made. How did Hitler succeed so much during the Second World War or the atomic bomb of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Who did all this? It's the engineers. It's the professionals. It's the scientists. It's the technologists. And it is said that one who pressed the button of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he could not see later on his own life. He became mad. He lost the focus of his life. He said, what have I done? Within seconds, 5 lakh, 10 lakh people evaporated. No address. The radiation is affecting even now. Who did all this? The scientific mind? The technological mind? On the other side, technology also has given wonders to this world. It has made the whole world a global village. Now today, when I am talking in IIT, I remember or put this in front of you for you to think. It's not the end of the game. Go back to the Puranas. Puranas again does not mean only old. The Sanskrit derivation, please understand, Pura api nava eva iti. Though it is old, it is ever young. That is a Purana. Simply people dismiss it. Hey, Purana baat kar raha hai. Pura api nava eva iti. Since you are dealing with technology, dealing with your life at the same time, what happened? During the Samudra Manthana, the churning of the Milky Ocean, all of you technology students, please ponder over it, go back home and think about the significance of this story. The positive and the negative forces, the Asuras and the Devas, started churning the ocean because they wanted Amrutam. Their desire was the same. Their guru suggests, you have to churn the ocean, you will get it. But what did they get? So many ratnas, so many jewels, so many wonderful things they got. They did not stop working. They said these are all byproducts. We want the main thing. They continued churning, but something unexpected happened, which they could not know. What was that? Vasuki, the serpent, was vomiting poison. It got mixed up with the 3 waters of the ocean. And today what we call environmental pollution was a problem at that time also. Global warming, ozone depletion. All this happened because the whole poison was so powerful. Neither the Devas and the Asuras had the power to save themselves. Only Mahadeva Shiva has to come down from his meditation, takes the poison, and that becomes very little in quantity. It doesn't percolate beyond the throat, and the throat becomes blue in color, devotees hail him today as Neelakantha, the blue-throated one. What a wonderful name. What is Dushana for the world became Bhushana for an infinite personality. That is the climax there. Dushana is poison for the society, but Bhushana an ornament because he is too big. He has consumed the poison. Why am I telling this? Whether it's NASA or whether it's ISRO, whether it's Infosys or whether it is Microsoft, whether it's Apple or whether it is any other company, whether it's IIT Madras or whether it's Harvard University, what are you guys doing? You are churning nature. You are putting your brain, you are investing money, you are experimenting, exploring, exploiting sometimes also. Going beyond the limits. That is why nature gives a rap on the knuckle sometimes. You are going too far, too fast. Hold on. Poison. And we have got Ratnas on the first hand. Jewels. So much. Facilities, comforts. But do you deny the fact today that we are experiencing poison in the name of animosities, jealousies, hatred, so on and so forth? Swine flu was not a problem 10 years ago. This is another gift. And there's a great danger coming ahead, according to UNESCO, my dear friends. UNESCO says, India's problem will not be swine flu or AIDS or unemployment. It will be a problem of psychology. It will be a problem to the government of India, to all of us, to the parents and others will be young, rich, retired Indians. By 40, retired. He cannot see, he cannot sit, he cannot digest. But tons and tons of money are there inside the bank. What will you do with such people? Young, rich, retired Indians. UNESCO gives a warning. They made a wonderful study and said, these young people will on a Saturday and Sunday go to two places. One will be a pub or to a psychiatry. That's what is happening today. Whether it's in Chennai, whether it's in Hyderabad, you come to Hyderabad, they'll take you to a government hospital called Nilofer Hospital, where there is a psychiatry center, counseling center called Yuva. And who is the patient? A 17 or 18-year-old young boy who is brought by his 80-year-old grandfather. This is society today. Grandfather is strong, this fellow is disturbed, depressed. Another boy comes to me and said, humorously I put it across, he said, Swamiji, I am playing football. I said, very good, be the captain of the non-existing Indian team. He said, no Swamiji, I am playing football in video game. Oh my God, this is his game, this is his entertainment. I said, I'll give you 500 rupees, buy a real football, break somebody's head, break your leg, something, do something. Don't just be a fool of yourself. Playing football in the video game and you call it football. It is actually finger ball. And he calls it football in the video game and it's a goal in the middle of the night. What will happen to the Olympics then? How many Sindhus or how many Sakshis should come? This is the humorous part. Aside, what I want to tell you, my dear young friends, is unless and until you have this fundamental question of what is the truth? What is the reality? What is that which makes me a different personality? That was the question of the ancient masters. Study physics, study nuclear physics, study Raman effect, understand the uniqueness of the Indian's mind, uniqueness of the Indian scientists. Don't just go by the technicalities of the subject, understand the background with which they have contributed to the scientific world, our world, your world. Whether it's Satyendranath Bose, the boson, whether it's C.V. Raman, whether it's Meghnad Saha, whether it's J.C. Bose, these galaxy of stars which India time and again produced. What a wonder. I was reading Satyendranath Bose's life, reading Meghnad Saha's life, sitting in a corner, sitting under a tree, sitting under a street lamp. But their consciousness, their search for truth, what next? They contributed so much to this world of science. You should explore those possibilities. Don't just go by the technicalities. The principle is important. Then you have already the applications which in your textbook, in your syllabus, in your career. But the inquiry mind of an Archimedes, the inquiry mind of C.V. Raman, the inquiry mind of Srinivasa Ramanujan, they did not stop with that one discovery or one research or one project. They went beyond of controlling their consciousness and contributing to the nation. This is the uniqueness of our Indian mind, of the scientific mind. All of you know the great contributions of India. Few lectures were done in the last couple of academic sessions here. So let us awaken from this hypnotism. I call it hypnotism of this magical world which has created so much of glamour, so much of sophistication. We have lost ourselves. You're all scientific mind students. Otherwise, why will you come here? Why will you get admitted here? Why will you get the options here? So I want you to look at the sensitivity of the applications of science. So the question of the spiritual mind, the spiritual heart, the scientific mind is this. Vivekananda beautifully says in his Gnana Yoga lectures, to discover in the midst of this eternally changing and evanescent world whatever is real. I repeat again, to discover in the midst of this eternally changing and evanescent world whatever is real. A prayer comes from the mind, of the ancient mind. Tatakim, tatakim, tatakim. Shankaracharya asked the question. When you join the LKG, already there is a question, what next? There's a 5th standard. You go to the primary school, what next? You go to the high school, what next? You come to the intermediate. You face the whole nation, what next? Become a professional. Take up a technology, take up medicine, take up law, take up something. What next? Take up a job, what next? Have a family, what next? Have a dozen children. What next? Get diseases, whatever you want, pay to the doctor. What next? Goodbye. What next? Come back to IIT again. This drama goes on. What makes you free? We don't ask the question. As Sai Teja must have found out when somebody is asking why a young boy like you is reading the Bhagavad Gita. I have a suggestion for you, Sai Teja. The very Bhagavad Gita attacked them left, right, center. It was not taught in an ashram. It was not taught under a tree. It was not taught with laddus. It was taught in the battlefield. It was not taught anywhere. My God, please understand the very fact when Krishna says, take up the weapons and do your dharma, what an old man can do. Poor man, he cannot see, he cannot digest a cup of milk. And Krishna says, take up and fight. This man will go to a doctor. High cholesterol, high BP. And somebody came with to buy 10 copies of the Bhagavad Gita in our bookstall one day. I was there. I said, what for is this Bhagavad Gita? 10 copies? No, Swamiji, some 10 people are retiring in my office. I want to present to them. Oh my God, save India. I said, you should have given them on the first day when I joined the office. They will have some little character and ethics and they will not corrupt the country. And you guy give him in the last day? For what? Karmanye vadikaraste. All his karma is over. What else adhikaraste? What else he will do with that karma? He has to execute the karma, not just eat the karma phala. Not just eat the prasadam. Mark the words, my dear friends. So you have to take it up. What is this universe for? Ashishto, Dudishto, Balishta, Tasyayam Prithvi Sarvavittasya Purnasyat. This world is for the young, the energetic, the athletic, the strong, the intelligent. And in the name of enjoyment, where I meet hundreds and hundreds of students day after day in our Institute of Human Excellence, BComs, MCAs, MBAs, all professional people, they cry, they are confused. It's something else which you have to do, which the question comes here. Vivekananda had a very painful experience when he was in the West. He says, In modern times, if a man quotes a Moses or a Buddha or a Christ, he is laughed at. But let him give the name of Huxley, Tyndall, or a Darwin, and it is swallowed without salt. Huxley has said it, that is enough for many. Darwin has said it, enough for many. We are free from superstitions indeed. And Swamiji says, that was a religious superstition, all right, but this is a scientific superstition. One superstition came life-giving ideas of spirituality. In and through this modern superstition comes lust and greed. One gave worship of God, another gave worship of negative things, filth and lucre. What is superstition? Why we are just strangling ourselves, limiting ourselves in the world of superstition? Rise it, that is what Vedanta says, that is what Vivekananda came for. Vedanta knows no superstition. Vedanta knows no sin. The inquiry came to one of the greatest sages. And that sage went inside, searching for truth. The power of seeing outside, he just turned it inside. By nature, all of us are outside, Bahirmukha. The search, scientifically or spiritually, is search for inside. You have telescopes, you have other scopes, other gadgets, other technologies to have meters, to have record statistics. But here there is a bigger scope of enlightenment. Avritta chakshuhu amritatvam icchan. Why are you doing all this? You desire immortality. You desire power. Amritatvam icchan. And the name of that person is impersonal. Apaurushya. The word used beautifully in the Upanishad is Kaschid Dhiraha, some great man. Heroic man. Dhira Purusha alone can attempt it. Not a weakling. Not a old man. You are strong. You are healthy. Avritta Chakshu, Amritatvam Icchan, and he got something unique. And what did he get? He came out with a beautiful expression, a beautiful experience, somewhere in the Narmada, somewhere in the banks of the Ganga, a beautiful utterance. He could not control the joy. He said, I don't want to keep it to myself. I want to share it with the whole humanity. The spiritual heart widely opened. My dear friends, combine this with your technology and see the uniqueness that India can become the teacher of the whole world. That is what Swami Vivekananda did 120 years ago. The word is so beautiful, comes in the Upanishad. Shrunvantu vishve amritasya putraha. Hear, O children of immortal bliss. What? What are you calling us, Swami? Amritasya putraha? No. I am so and so only. Vivekananda had to face these questions. Allow me to call you brethren by that sweet name, children of immortal bliss. Vivekananda says in Chicago, allow me to call you brethren by that sweet name, children of immortal bliss. It's a sin to call a man a sinner. Your soul's free, immortal. Be free, my children. Amritasya putra. What a sweet name. And the next sentence is, that sage was so proud. He was so vibrant. He says, oh God, sitting there and having a party, please come down and listen to me. Come down. Aye dhamani divyani tastu. Why should you listen to me? Vedahametam purusham mahantam. Adityavarnam tamasaf parastat. Like the sun rises in the eastern horizon and the darkness goes in that split second. All the darkness of my life has gone. I have realized the Mahapurusha. And he says, Tameva viditva atimrutyameti. By realizing him alone, you can become immortal. Nanyaf pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other path other than this. Follow me, follow me, follow me. And he walks like a free personality all over the subcontinent, and the whole world listens to him. And that came out beautifully in 1893 onwards through Swami Vivekananda. When he broadcasted this whole message of Vedanta, freedom, of the spiritual search to the entire mankind, America was stunned to silence. And one of them said, Swami, you are hypnotizing us. Straight came Swami Vivekananda's answer, no, my dear son, I am dehypnotizing you. You were already hypnotized before you came to this hall. Black and white, rich and poor, high and low, man, woman, this is hypnotism. Look beyond this tiny body-mind complex of 5 feet, 6 feet, flesh and blood. There is something else inside you. Look at the possibilities inside you. Look at the technology being used for this purpose. The possibilities have to be explored today, not exploited. And that is what happened. It's not just gimmicks, it is not just movie stories that I am talking to you. So at the end of the day, what I want to just share with you, along with this dehypnotizing process, one more important point comes here, which will be very useful to you as far as this thinking process is concerned. Once again, with the scientific mind and the spiritual heart, please understand, we are not individuals yet. We are not individuals yet. We are just specimens. You may be afraid to know this. We are stunned to know this. Are we not individuals? What is your individuality based on? A little mustache? A little ego? A little education? A little bank balance? Is that your individuality? In the beginning I told you, what was the individuality of Viktor Frankl when nothing is there? What is your basis? We are struggling towards that individuality. And that is the infinite, that is the real nature of man. This should be broadcasted from rooftops, within ourselves also. It has to go out into the society, through you, through your life. Whether it's an auto driver, or a bus driver, or a coolie, or a watchman, or a peon. He alone lives whose life is in this whole universe. And the more we concentrate our lives on limited things, the faster we go towards death. Those moments alone we live when our lives are in the universe, in others, and living this little life is death, simply death, and that is why the fear of death comes. The fear of death can only be conquered when man realizes that so long as there is one life in this universe, he is living. When he can say, I am in everything, in everybody, I am in all lives, I am the universe, then alone comes the state of fearlessness. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve sarvatra. What a universal message went out. It's not I and me alone. It's not my group alone. It's not my community alone. Sarve sarvatra sukhinah, santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Then I find my individuality inside you. You find your individuality in me. We become one. At that spiritual level. So my dear young friends, that is your nature. Assert it, manifest it, not to become pure. You are pure already. You are not to be perfect. You are that already. Nature is like the screen which is hiding the reality beyond. I am standing here. You are sitting there, and suddenly we put a screen here in front of me. I am not able to see you. But something makes me make a small hole in the screen. I am not satisfied. That tiny vision is not comfortable for me. I am feeling pain. I make it a little bigger, little bigger, little bigger. A time comes when I tear off the screen. What has changed? Have you changed? Have I changed? Only the obstruction has gone. You are there, I am there. So all science, all meditation, all search for truth is tearing off that screen. That is why technology, that is why science, that is why meditation, that is why seva. Tear that screen. That is the effort that each one of you has to put back in your hostels. Tomorrow morning when you get up, tear that screen. Tear this hypocrisy. See the light as light. That is why Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. The sun rises, the darkness has gone. So it can come through any process, any yoga. It can come through karma yoga, it can come through bhakti yoga, it can come through meditation, it can come through study, it can come through questioning also. Because, my dear friends, we are bound with so many knots at the subconscious mind. We are binding ourselves day after day. That is the trouble. And we think we are free. Nature gives a knock and you are out. I remember a B.Tech student from Hyderabad, having got a distinction, joined the hostel here in Sarayu hostel, and after 3 months her dead body came back to Hyderabad. She could not face life. Can your mechanics give back her life? Can your civils give back her life? Can your IT give back her life? No. She is a dead body. She was a daughter of a farmer who mortgaged his farms for her future education. But she is a dead body because she went into bad times. Her mind did not cooperate with her. Just 3 months into IIT. Here in this very Sarayu hostel. I know the father. Today he doesn't have tears in his eyes because it is dried up. He says, what have I done for my daughter? Today, along with your technology, I request all my young friends to develop this sensitivity in life today. Enough is enough. Too much of grossness. Only that sound comes. I should enter into you. That is the spirituality. That is science. Contribute to the welfare of the society. Contribute something to the tea gardeners, to the ladies, to the girls in Assam. Or somewhere in Karnataka. There is this boy, I know him, called Nitish Bharadwaj, who was a Bangalore University B.Tech student, mechanical. And this guy goes back to Mangalore and he finds the problem in Kasargod and Mangalore area. 6 months the tribals are cut off from the mainland. Patients cannot come. Business cannot go on. Flooded with the river waters, with the landslidings. So requested the government, requested the collector. Nobody came. But he turned sensitive. He's inspired by Swami Vivekananda's teachings of let me contribute back to the society because I was a consumer. I learnt and got so many things. Let me contribute. Single-handed this fellow, Girish Bharadwaj, taking the help of the villagers, young boys, trained them in mechanics, trained them in nut and bolts fixing. And today in the Kasargod Mangalore area, he has built 67 reusable bridges. He's a godfather in the villages. Two-wheelers can go, buses and other things cannot go. Morning they will come, evening he will go back. The villager is happy. Young ladies of delivery or pregnancy problems, they can come to the hospital mainland and go back in the evening. How many people he has helped? That is the spiritual contribution. Technology on the one side, not just I for myself and the devil take the hindmost. Let me become a server of the society. Let me contribute to the welfare of this nation. That is where your technology of science and your contribution of spirituality will happen. Couple of examples Professor had mentioned. One such example, which I will conclude with this, is of a young boy, some of you may be knowing, may not be knowing, who is considered today as the world's youngest headmaster. He is not from far away, somewhere America or Comerica. He started a school when he was just 9 years old. 4th standard boy. One teaching of Vivekananda changed his life. And his first student was his own 2-year-old sister. A Muslim boy, Babar Ali by name, metamorphosized the concept of service in education. And BBC told in 2010, the world's youngest headmaster at the age of 16 years. And his school is beautiful, 24 hours air conditioned, because there is no roof and no compound. Air will come, air will go, air conditioned, natural. And he is doing it. He has got 1,800 students today. He has got 3 branches, 200 kilometers away from Calcutta. And every time he says, the fountainhead of my inspiration is Swami Vivekananda. His father sells jute in the local village. His mother is an illiterate housewife. It's a joy to see. And he is using the best of technology to build up the minority section and take them to the high levels of human excellence. He spoke in BITS Pilani in Hyderabad, 3,000 students, cream of India, tears in their eyes. What have we done, Babar? What are you doing, Babar? What sheer magic he is bringing about in the lives of these people. Continuously his spirituality is flowing. His heart is expanding. That is where Vivekananda stands outright than other leaders in the country. Dr. Radhakrishnan beautifully said in 1963 during the Vivekananda centenary, when somebody asked him, what is the difference between Swami Vivekananda and all of you? You are also a great leader. You are also a great speaker. And you have spoken in Harvard University. You have written so many books. So what is that makes you and Vivekananda different? Dr. Radhakrishnan beautifully said in one sentence, the difference between Swami Vivekananda and other leaders is Vivekananda lives in the soul of India. We exist on the soil of India. What a wonderful observation. By one who himself is a Medhavi, one who himself is one of the top class leaders or orators or thinkers of the country, he said, soul of India, soil of India makes a difference. My dear young friends, Vivekananda is not something to be, as he said, to be worshipped, etc. He himself said several times, if you have heard Kalam's talk on Vivekananda, he refers to that again and again, don't make my name prominent, make my principles practical. Apply the teachings. Appreciation we have done enough. Now what we need is application. Spiritual application. Take the light and light of Vedanta to every door and awaken the divinity in every soul. That is Vivekananda's letter to Madras disciples, to Alasinga Perumal. And you are fortunate to be studying in Madras, where Vivekananda was first recognized. Nowhere else he got that reception. Nowhere else he got that welcome. That hero's welcome that he got when he came back from Chicago. The whole streets were lighted up for 9 days to an ordinary beggar monk who was not a Congress president, who was not a minister, who was not a businessman, just wearing a akar robe, and he comes and says, oh India, wake up from your sleep, what has happened to you? The longest night seems to be passing away. India, this motherland of ours, never is she going to sleep anymore. No outward powers can hold her back anymore, for the infinite giant is rising to her feet. The whole nation got up in 1897, and Vivekananda beautifully said in Illam, Vivekananda Illam, I am seeing something I am not saying. What am I seeing? India shall be free in the next 50 years, but we have to pay a heavy price for it. And that freedom comes in 1947. The Rishi's words were so true, so powerful. I want to just end with this small visual of how we can make a difference through technology, through spiritual values, as far as possible within our lifetime, and become a blessing to the society. So a lot of work is going on, east or west, north or south. So combine, since you are technology students, and apply that spiritual element of reading Swami Vivekananda's Gnana Yoga lectures in their proper perspective. You are the right people to understand that. Wonderful things are there in that literature. It's not bias, it is not colored by any other thing, it is just wonderful inspiration. think that there is something else inside you in our life, think that you are pure, strong, eternal, go deep into the spiritual consciousness, identify yourself with the real self inside you, beyond the mind, beyond all our whims and fancies, then one day you will reach the goal. That goal will be so clear as if an apple is kept in your hand. This is the proof, this is the psychology, and this is the application. Thank you very much.